I also read my namesake, Catherine Maher, was head of NPR, and she said, "We're completely unbiased. Give me a break, lady." Read the NPR. NPR said, "It sounds like Chappelle is using white privilege to excuse his homophobia and transphobia." Wait, now Dave Chappelle can have white privilege? I'm really confused now.
Bill Maher, known for his occasional sympathy toward the Democratic Party, recently turned his attention to NPR amid accusations that the media outlet leans Democratic. Surprisingly, instead of defending NPR, Maher went after its credibility, delivering a scathing critique that left audiences stunned. For those who enjoy sharp and provocative political commentary, this moment is not to be missed, so hit the like button and subscribe to the channel.
As testified before Congress this week, amid accusations of liberal bias, should the government continue to send taxpayer dollars to public broadcasters? Well, a little background here. I mean, they've been after them the Republicans have wanted to get rid of PBS for as long as I can remember. This crowd will probably do it. I mean, I also read my namesake, Catherine Maher, was head of NPR, and, she said, "We're completely unbiased. Give me a break, lady." I mean, they're crazy far left.
Classic Bill Maher, saying the quiet part out loud and not worrying about who gets offended. Maher claims that NPR isn't just mildly left-leaning, it's firmly on the far left, despite leadership insisting the outlet is neutral and objective. That's where he draws the line. While no one expects a major media organization to openly admit its biases, pretending they don't exist crosses a line. Maher argues that claiming neutrality while consistently promoting one ideological perspective is dishonest and insulting to the audience's intelligence. In his view, NPR has drifted so far into ideological comfort that it doesn't even recognize its own slant anymore. The issue isn't that NPR has opinions, everyone does, but that it refuses to acknowledge them. His critique hits even harder because it comes from someone who usually aligns politically with the outlet, making it difficult to dismiss as mere partisan noise.
I mean, I think we're past the age, really, where the government, first of all, why do we need to subsidize? Why can't we have outlets like this? And we're so polarized. These outlets became popular at a time when Republicans and Democrats didn't hate each other and weren't at each other's throats and didn't think each other was an existential threat. In that world, you can't have places like this, I think, anymore. They have to be private.
Maher makes a point that's hard to ignore. When a media outlet like NPR receives government funding, questions about independence, accountability, and influence are inevitable. Even without direct pressure, the perception alone can erode public trust. That's why, as Maher suggests, privatization makes sense. A publicly funded media organization can easily be seen as aligning with whichever party is in power, especially in today's polarized and toxic political climate. The stakes are too high for public media to convincingly claim neutrality while relying on taxpayer dollars. NPR may have once played a unifying role, but in an era defined by ideological battles and cultural division, that mission feels increasingly outdated. Privatization wouldn't silence NPR. It would require the outlet to stand entirely on its own credibility, audience support, and transparency. If NPR truly believes in its neutrality, going private would be the clearest way to prove it.
I think Yuri Berliner, ex-NPR employer, his piece this week, where he said that they should just let go of the funding. I love NPR. I listen to NPR almost every day, have since 1975, when my parents used to play it in our Chevrolet Caprice when I was like 9 years old. I love it for its point of view, but since 2020, it has no longer been general. I remember in 2021, my then 9-year-old asked me, and of course she has no sense of context, I don't pump her full of things like this. She said from the back seat in a very different car, she said, "Daddy, why is it that NPR is always playing the same thing? And I said, what do you mean the same thing? And I swear she said, now she doesn't have a vocabulary, but she said, it's always about how somebody can't do something.
NPR's alleged bias came under sharper scrutiny following revelations about its edited interview with Kamala Harris. Editing interviews isn't unusual. Media outlets often trim conversations for time, remove long pauses, or cut off-topic remarks, but in this case, the edits went far beyond routine cleanup. Leaked footage suggested that NPR restructured Harris's responses in a way that critics argue changed the meaning of her answers compared to the raw exchange. That's where the line is crossed. It's no longer about clarity, but about shaping perception. For critics, this reinforced long-standing suspicions that NPR doesn't just report the news, but frames coverage in ways that appear to favor certain political figures. Intentional or not, the incident weakened NPR's claim of neutrality and gave skeptics fresh reason to question whose voice the network is truly amplifying.
What she was getting at was that I wouldn't have said that about the NPR that I knew back in the day, and I wouldn't have said it 10 years ago, but that is what it is now. I will listen to it daily, but it's no longer a general audience venue that you just give up national funding. Yeah.
Maher couldn't agree more. He believes NPR should stop receiving public funding and operate as a fully private institution, where any political leanings would at least be transparent and expected. Audiences already understand this dynamic. No one is surprised when Fox News leans right or MSNBC leans left, because as private companies, they answer to advertisers, owners, and viewers. Their biases are part of the brand. NPR, however, still presents itself as neutral and serving the public while relying on taxpayer money from people across the political spectrum, a contradiction Maher finds unacceptable. Privatization wouldn't silence NPR or reduce its reach. It would simply remove the pretense. Freed from public funding, NPR could openly take sides, and in today's hyper-partisan media landscape, honesty might be far more valuable than neutrality.
I'm just going to read this one from NPR. It's because the reviews from the critics so at variance with the audience. Rotten Tomatoes, that's an amalgam of reviews. I think in this case 7. His special got a 43%. Audience 95. Says a lot about the differentiation between real people and...
Here, Maher points to what he considers a textbook example of NPR's ideological bias. A few years ago, comedian Dave Chappelle sparked controversy with jokes about the trans community, drawing backlash from activist groups and online outrage campaigns demanding he be canceled. NPR's coverage of the incident raised eyebrows. While the outlet highlighted a critical review of Chappelle's special, giving it a 4 out of 10, it completely ignored the overwhelmingly positive audience response, which rated it 9 out of 10. To Maher, this wasn't just a difference of opinion, it was selective framing. By amplifying elite criticism while downplaying public reception, NPR came across less as a neutral observer and more as a cultural referee, subtly steering listeners toward a preferred judgment.
The problem with Latinx, but it doesn't seem to be making any inroads into the communities where most Latinx people live. And so you have this sort of educated dialect way of thinking. And that's the case here, where all of these people, I think, to get back to this simplicity idea, they see that Dave Chappelle is a comedian. There are layers of wit and irony and attitude going on. And instead, we're told to just read it as if it was the Three Bears, and we're being told that that's sophisticated, when really that means that these people who are, so annoyed that anybody says some words or expresses some ideas are saying that most of America aren't sophisticated. And yet, last time I checked, they were arguing on the basis of disempowered people.
Maher's guest argues that the so-called woke police thrive on theatrics rather than substance. According to him, their goal isn't really to silence someone like Dave Chappelle or address the issues they claim to champion. It's about the performance, about being seen as fighting a righteous cause. Real-world impact or practical solutions take a back seat. That's why these activists often latch onto controversies that don't directly affect their own lives. To Maher and his guest, this reveals a deeper problem: activism driven by optics and virtue signaling rather than lived experience, accountability, or genuine concern for the people most affected.
That because you don't agree with what he said, which again, I don't think is transphobic. A lot of the special is about how he has this friendship with a trans person who is his opening act.
Maher's point centers on agency and responsibility. In his view, comedy doesn't create hatred, it mirrors the uncomfortable truths, tensions, and contradictions already present in society. Blaming a comedian is an easy shortcut for media outlets that favor outrage over nuance. Rather than cackling deeper social issues, they single out entertainers as symbolic villains. That, Maher argues, isn't journalism, it's moral panic masquerading as media critique.
Let me read the NPR. NPR said, "It sounds like Chappelle is using white privilege to excuse his homophobia and transphobia." Wait, now Dave Chappelle can have white privilege? I'm really confused now.
This is exactly why Maher argues that NPR should be defunded. In one critique, NPR suggested that Dave Chappelle was operating from white privilege, a claim that struck many as not just absurd, but revealing. Chappelle is one of the most prominent Black comedians in America, and his career has been shaped by experiences far from the simplistic notion of privilege NPR presented. This wasn't just a bad take, it was ideological framing overriding reality. What makes it worse is that this came from a media outlet partially funded by taxpayers. When publicly funded organizations adopt activist buzzwords and force them into narratives where they don't fit, public trust erodes. Maher's concern isn't about defending Chappelle, it's about accountability. If taxpayer-supported media can twist concepts like privilege to fit a political script, neutrality becomes impossible, making defunding a logical response. His critique goes beyond one comedian or joke. It's about media integrity and accountability. Publicly funded outlets like NPR claim neutrality, yet incidents like the Chappelle coverage reveal a pattern of ideological bias, selective framing, and moral posturing. Privatization, Maher argues, is the only way to make NPR's bias transparent and understandable, just like Fox News or MSNBC. From editing interviews to amplifying elite criticism and weaponizing woke outrage, the pattern is clear. NPR has drifted from reporting to messaging, and Maher's fiery condemnation shows why reform, or defunding, is overdue. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.